as we dive into it, let me set the frame here a little bit. So I think it's pretty clear that from what everyone said, we are all in the same boat, and we are scared, we are uncertain, we don't know what's ahead, we don't have all the answers, and we really wish we did, because we would love to be able to completely alleviate the anxieties that you're feeling or the suffering that you're experiencing. But that being said, I mean, we are here to collectively come together, share our experience. Some of us work predominantly online, some of us don't. Some of us are entrepreneurs, some of us are not. But we're here to try and share solutions, or at least move towards solutions. We're not here to share products. We're here to say, here's what we have seen, here's what we know, perhaps that it can help. And one thing to mention is this is not a one-time event. Like, this is not a one-shot conversation. We're going to be having this conversation for quite a long time. So what we imagine is that this will be kind of an emerging discussion that progresses as we hear you and we learn more. So this is going to be very iterative. And we hope that we can end this conversation on an empowering note. In the beginning, we want to call out the anxiety and the fear and the worry that we all have. But in the end, our hope is that you walk away with something. So I always like to tell people, look for the one nugget, preferably more, but the one thing that kind of resonates for you, whether that's just a feeling of like, you know what, I have ideas, I have a plan of action, I have something I can do, I feel optimistic in some way, or whether it's a specific thing. Oh, okay, I'm going to go and do this small action. It's just like we tell our clients to do, right? Go away and do one small action. So just through this presentation, keep looking for that one thing that you can take away. Times are tough, but hopefully we can support each other and find solutions along the way. So the frame of this conversation is we're going to start with really understanding what we're dealing with here. Move into talking about what it means for entrepreneurs, or self-employed, or if you work at a gym, if you have a business doing this, and then we'll conclude with some really practical stuff that you can take and use. So that's how the discussion will progress today. So let me get right to talking to Dr. Spencer as our doctor on the panel. I mean, tell us about what we're facing here. Why should we take this seriously? What is happening? And maybe what are some of the questions that you think people are going to have about this?
Yeah, it's kind of scary, kind of thinking of a new virus that's out there. There's a lot of misconceptions. I see all sorts of social media posts about this that are clearly just made up, infographics and things like that. It's hard to know who to trust. But I'm getting emails from actual public health officials at a very high level. And so I want to go over kind of some of these facts. So this is a brand new virus that's made its transmission from what we think are animals to humans now being spread human to human. It started in 2019, hence the name COVID-19. It's a new coronavirus. There are coronaviruses out there already that we call the common cold. This one's different. And the thing that makes it different, as well as being new, is that it seems to have more severe symptoms. So when people say it's no worse than the common cold, or it's just like another flu circulating, what we think, based on preliminary data, is that it tends to have a higher complication rate, meaning more people develop a pneumonia or acute respiratory distress syndrome, which is basically some fluid in the little sacs in your lungs that stop us from giving our oxygen in our blood. So that is a complication. Also higher case fatality rate. So when people say it's just the common cold or the flu, it's that's kind of minimizing it. We think, based on preliminary data, that it's worse. We'll know more when the dust settles about this. So yes, there are coronaviruses already circulating. This is a brand new one that seems to be worse in terms of complications and case fatality rate. I think it's also important, I just wrote a couple notes here. The actual virus is called the Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome Coronavirus 2. There was a SARS, the version 1 was earlier 2000s. Now, the disease it causes is called COVID-19, Coronavirus Disease 2019. I saw some people saying, see, there have been 18 viruses before this. It's like, no, it's just based on the year. And it's also important, I think, to have the right terminology, because there's also some discriminatory names going out there that it's important to stick to the right nomenclature. Something to kind of put your mind at ease. We're all probably pretty fit here. I know everybody here. I think JB can even probably outrun all of us, even at his age right now. And we're all fit. We're all probably very low risk as far as the data is concerned. It seems to be that the older crowd, 60 and above, are affected more in terms of the complications. And it also seems to be that those who have what we call comorbidities, meaning things like hypertension, type 2 diabetes, and cardiovascular disease, seem to be affected more. That's good news for us because we're all exercisers, eat very well, and probably most of our clients are like that, and we want to keep them that way. I will say, though, that there is still a chance that you may have complications, and that kind of brings into my next point, is that I had one of the first patients in the United States that come down with this, young, healthy guy, and he had to be hospitalized just for a night due to pneumonia from the COVID-19. Now, this is just a case study, an anecdote. I don't want to freak everybody out. He's doing fine now. But the whole point of this, us getting together, and why the government shut us down, basically, and why we're all closing our gyms, is because we're supposed to do this thing called socially isolate ourselves. So we stop the spread. The reason is because if a young guy gets this and has to use the hospital system, think about everybody else that will get it that's not fit and that's a little bit older. It's thought that, based on predictions, that we could completely use up the resources, and then the people that need it still for regular emergencies like heart attacks, strokes, GI bleeds, and things like that, there won't be resources for them, so then the death rate will spike acutely. Now, you know, I do want to say, though, there are all sorts of predictions and things out there. The reality of it is it's out of our control, and I think that's why we've all gathered here. We should focus on what we can control, accept what we can't, and we cannot control the government and things like that. So that's why I love being here, is that we're kind of creating an action plan to move forward regardless of what we believe about the virus based on the stats that are coming out. I don't know if I missed anything. You have any questions?
No, that was great. And I want to come back with a couple other questions, but I actually want to ask Curtis just real briefly, because, you know, when we were first conceptualizing this conversation, it was several days ago. And the language that we were using around advice to people who had gyms was like, consider closing, right? Think about closing, or you may want to, you know, or be very careful about disinfecting your surfaces. And as the conversation progressed, we got to a place of saying, no, you really have to shut down. And Curtis, just from your, like, what was that like for you to know that this was progressing? And as someone who owns in-person gyms, like, what was that like for you?
Yeah, it was obviously challenging. And as you mentioned, I mean, it was day by day, like everything escalated really, really quickly. So I used the example last Wednesday, we had an action plan and a strategy that literally went out the window Thursday morning. You know, the heightened hysteria that was created when the NBA, NHL, Disney, and, you know, other organizations shut down, it heightened the response and the hysteria from, you know, our client base, the communities, you know, and the people around us. And so, you know, then it went into, you know, the dialogue online, social media, some of the reports. And ever since then, it progressed quicker and quicker. And so, you know, when we looked at it and evaluated it, it was not, we decided to close our doors Sunday morning. It was a discussion. You know, I live in Vancouver, British Columbia, and we have a lot of our locations out here, which is probably the least impacted in all of Canada. And, you know, one of the least impacted areas probably in, I wouldn't say North America, but it definitely there wasn't that many cases. But we looked at it kind of going, you know, we have to take the responsibility. I think we're all in this business for the betterment of the health and wellness of not only our clients, but the community. And it was hard. It was a very difficult decision. We wanted to participate and lead by example to flatten the curve and respect the request of social distancing. And as much as we can control out of anyone, you know, we look at our environment, we're not a drop-in gym. We're not a group class. environment. We know every single person that walks in the door, and we think we knew where they traveled to, who they were interacting with, you name it. But, we quickly realized that that was naive to think that. And so when we made that decision, we do have franchise partners, and it was tough. I mean, there were some tears, there was some fear, there was, because everything that we had put in place and discussed 5 days, a week before, got escalated to, in our mind was worst case scenario, which was shutting the doors. And, and we're still navigating through that. So, I think, at the end of the day, if we look at this as, I'm not going to suggest that we have to take a specific action, because I think it's all of our personal decisions and the responsibility that we want to take. But, at the end of the day, social distancing and isolation is important, especially if we're looking out for the health of our communities. It's not just about the people, it's about the communities. It's flattening the curve so that we're not stressing the medical system, so that we can address and really support the people that need it. So it was, to answer, to your question, it was a very challenging decision, and one that we stuck our neck out, and a little bit probably early compared to most. And the one thing that I will say is that the response was very positive from our clients. They really appreciated the stance we took, and they understood it,
Yeah, that's something I'm hearing from a lot of business owners, actually, that clients are very understanding. And I think it speaks to, you use that word community, right? I think it speaks to our ability to create relationships with our clients such that they are willing to stick with us through the hard times. And, rather than just losing everyone immediately if we do close, there is kind of an enduring sense of like, people understand and appreciate in a way. So thanks so much for sharing that experience, because I can only imagine what it must have been like to close 12 gyms. Spencer, I want to get back to you, because one of the questions that comes up, I think, almost immediately in the health and fitness world is, can I eat something? Can I work out in a certain way? Or can I take a supplement to fix this or make it go away or boost my immune system?
Yeah,
what do you say to that?
I just made some memes about that.
Of course you did.
If you end up following me after this, just be wary. I do post some inflammatory memes. There's just supposed to spark discussion. But I was actually just quoted in Prevention and Parade about this, because we had a discussion with a few doctors, and it come to find out the virus can live on plastic for like 3 days, cardboard for a day. The risk of transmission using that is very low. Is very low. It's thought to be more aerosolized droplets. So that's why we are staying away from people in general. But most restaurants are closed. That's because we just don't want to be around people. Now, if the person preparing the food has it and coughs on the food, technically it could transmit. But if you cook the food yourself, it's probably very low risk. Even if you get takeout, it's still pretty low risk. I would have the delivery person drop it on the doorstep, just so you don't have to interact with that person. Nothing against them, but just so you don't have to be close to another person. I would take the food out of the plastic bag, wash your hands, and eat your food. In regards to working out, the thing with gyms is that, some people are laughing like, look, nobody's in the gym, so I'm socially isolated. True, I suppose, but in general, we just want to stay away from groups of people altogether. So someone was asking me about, well, can I get like 4 people together in a yard, even if we stay away from each other? I would say stay away from that. That would defeat the purpose, despite being 6 feet away. I would say try to work out by yourself. Honestly, like, you can still go for walks. You're away from people in the open air. The virus can be aerosolized and stay in the air for a considerable amount of time, but with the wind and being in open air, probably very low risk. You can probably go for runs. Ideally you'd have a set of dumbbells or something like that if you need to get strength training in at home. In regards to boosting your immunity, I always say, like, what does that even mean? What do you mean boosting your immunity? What we want to do is have an effective treatment to decrease our susceptibility to that specific virus. And we want to support our own immune system by being as healthy as possible. And everybody here that I follow, PN, RP, Girls Gone Strong, Online Training Academy, all these people here, we promote what I deem like a science-based nutrition philosophy, an array of micronutrients and macronutrients supporting a healthy body weight, healthy nutrition. That's how we would support I would say support our immune system instead of just boosting it with some off the wall supplements. And that's basically what I would say. I wouldn't do any specific dietary pattern. Like, some people say, well, if your insulin's very low, if you're not eating any sugar, your immune system's going to be tip top and you won't have any issues with the virus. Then you have the opposite from like the plant-based high carb crowd saying the same thing about their diet. There's no specific dietary pattern other than eating an array of micronutrients, not being malnourished, not being undernourished too. I would consider those who are cutting weight very hard to probably cut back, because that's an added stressor. Now that is based on my expert opinion. We don't have a lot of data on that other than in maybe athletes who get too lean, but I probably wouldn't be trying to lose an extensive amount of weight right now unless you have some of these things like type 2 diabetes to where it may be of a benefit. But that's what I would say. That's what I've been telling the reporters and based on the data that I've seen.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like a lot of the advice is really like, this is actually an opportunity to groove those good habits, get your sleep, get your recovery. Don't be crazy with overtraining or extreme cutting. This is not the time to, test your endurance. Like, this is really about solidifying and sustaining these good habits. And that's what's kind of interesting actually I'm in Vancouver too. And what I'm noticing is that there are lots of people now running and biking and walking and playing with their kids outside because everyone's home from work. All the kids are home from school. So ironically, this may be a strange opportunity for a significant amount of the population to think about health behaviors that they haven't been doing because they've been working and commuting. So as coaches, in a weird way, there are opportunities there to say, hey, like, can we help you groove those healthy behaviors that maybe you didn't feel that you were able to do, or help you do them now that things are feeling much more stressful?
I would say one more thing with the meal prep too, is if we're not used to cooking at home, the way to minimize getting exposure is probably cooking at home. Now the issue is obviously getting the groceries, and that's another issue potentially, but that's what I'm telling people as well. A time to figure out how to cook and meal prep, and maybe get used to a little bit blander foods. Anyway, those are my thoughts.
Yeah, depression era cooking. It is if we have this infographic at PN called "How to Eat Well on a Budget," and I think a lot of people are really like, thinking about that bag of potatoes and dried beans and that kind of stuff. So it's a very strange time of opportunity, and to kind of use that as a little bit of a segue, John, I wanted to, John Goodman, I should say, John number one. I wanted to pick up on something you said when we discussed this before our call a few days ago, which was, this seems like a very unexpected event, and it is. Like, nobody could have predicted. Well, okay, probably people could have predicted, a virus eventually, but I think in the fitness world, like, to have it be so sudden and so strong and so dramatic and so worldwide, I mean, that's very hard to get your head around. But one of the things you said was, in a business, as a business person, we should expect disruption of some kind. We should expect that circumstances are always changing. I wondered if you could expand on that point a little
Absolutely. Bit. This is one of my favorite topics. I'm glad that you picked that out. You guys are smart. Nassim Taleb writes about this all the time. These are not my original ideas. He talks about anti-fragility. And the basic idea is any business and any person, I mean, not just business, physical as well, you want to build in resiliency and robustness into what you do. You really, have no idea what's going to happen in the future. None of us do. We do know that these types of events, he calls them black swan events, basically large, unpredictable, catalytic events happen. Historically, they happen. They're going to happen in the future. Again, nobody knows what they're going to be. Nobody knows exactly when they're going to happen. But we do know that they're going to happen. And so if you try to prepare for it and bet on it, you're probably going to lose. But if you build this anti-fragility into your business whereby you build this resilience, this ability to be able to move to pivot, then the result is when these things happen, you don't get taken out of the game. And I think that that's what's really important. And even when they happen, you know, even if you're watching this and you're like, okay, well, I haven't done this stuff, you know, leading up to it. So what do I do now? It's like, you still have time. And that's where there's a lot of opportunity here, because things are going to change. And oftentimes this is kind of like a reset, right? A lot of things that you probably thought that you should have done with your business, with your health, with your fitness all along, well, you're now kind of being forced to do, which is actually really exciting. And that's only going to benefit you in a lot of ways in the future, because like something like this, some black swan event, some large event, you know what? It's going to happen in the future again. Nobody knows when, nobody knows what it's going to be like, but it's going to happen. There's always going to be times when you're going to be made uncomfortable. And I think a lot of us got too comfortable for a lot of years. And we've all been kind of smacked upside the head by this. And like, it's scary. Things are up in the air, but at the same time, it's also really exciting because it's forcing all of us to be a lot better. And I think that's super cool.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, I mean, as coaches, we're in the business of painful growth, right? I mean, this is exactly the same trajectory as our clients. They come to us in moments of suffering and crisis, and sometimes having very sudden events. You know, you wake up and you have a heart attack, and then you have to, you know, your life falls apart and you have to reconstruct it. So in a sense, it very much parallels what our clients experience. And John Berardi, I want to bring you into this because, I mean, you know, your whole premise now as change maker is kind of about surfing those waves of change. But I mean, you've been in this business. Someone made a remark about your advanced age, which is really not that advanced, but in the fitness industry, I suppose. But I mean, you've been in this business for a while and you've had to surf those waves of change. I mean, can you speak to this kind of this theme of like, how do you, you know, maintain that resilience and maybe a little bit more tactical than conceptual in your response?
Yeah, thank you, Krista. I'm so super perceptive here. Jumped right on the thing that John wanted to talk about, and then you just jumped right on the thing I took about 5 notes on while John was talking. So I think before we, I want to talk to some of the tactical things, absolutely. Before that, though, I'm not sure. Really, I want to start with like this framework here because everyone keeps calling these uncertain times, and that's true. The question is this going to last 2 weeks, or is this going to last 6 months, or is this going to last a year? Because obviously the answer to that question will have dramatically different outputs for how you decide to live right now. You know, so for example, if we're talking about people working in the health and fitness industry, right? And the idea that gyms may not be closed for just what am I going to do for the next 2 weeks? How am I going to stay in shape? It could be, what are you going to do for the next 12 months? And I don't say this to freak anyone out. It's just, if it were to be 12 months, we would all adapt systems to do that, right? So I think that's the first thing we have to come to terms with. This may not be a couple of weeks. Like Spencer said, he was talking to public health people. I was talking to education people recently. They shut down certain school districts for 2 weeks. That's not the intention. They're not going to be closed for 2 weeks. They just say that so that we don't all freak out with the prospect of 8 weeks ahead, you know? So at the end of the 2 weeks, they'll say they're closed for 2 more weeks, and we'll probably be playing this game for quite a long time. I'm home right now. I have the luxury of being home with my family. We have 4 children who are out of school. So it's all of us in a house together in Arizona, where we don't normally live. So this isn't even our house, figuring out what to do with ourselves. So I think that's the context before I go into some of the tactics. You know, I think that if we were to presume this is a mid to long haul kind of a thing, right? And there's precedent for that. I mean, I shared a story on social today about how Shakespeare wrote some of his most famous works in the 1600s during the plague, which was a year of quarantine for everyone. So let's not presume this is going to be 2 weeks. If this is all true, then the actions you can start to take are thinking about how to create a business or a revenue stream or whatever that will help you over the next year under these kinds of conditions. I mean, some businesses are absolutely thriving right now. If you're an investor, there are places where you can put your money. For example, anyone who's going to deliver things to your home that you would have previously left to go purchase. These are some businesses you might want to be in right now. You know what I mean? But when it comes to our field, you know, I've long written about this idea: how can your business survive on your savings? So when you're setting up your business for the future, the first question is, how much do we save, right? So rather than buying G-Wagons and fancy houses, as an entrepreneur, am I tucking away enough such that if ... were to happen, I could last a year or two with no income, right? That's the premise that Phil and I built Precision Nutrition on. I remember people coming to my modest house back in the day when PN was still doing great, and being like, oh, the great Sean Berardi just lives in this house? Like, what's going on here? And I'm like, oh, that's because I save everything in case something were to happen. So in most of our lifetimes, that in case something were to happen was some vague and nebulous non-thing. But we just got the thing. We just got the ... thing, right? That in case a pandemic breaks out, that's the answer in our lifetime now. So again, for those of you who haven't prepared in that way, this isn't me shaming you in any way. It's just, okay, we can start thinking about this now. You know what I mean? How do you start tucking away things now so you can survive maybe a year of social distancing? The next thing is, like, you know, under non-crisis times, the idea of, let's say, doubling down on coaching in person when a lot of people are moving online, or doubling down on online when you see a lot of people in your community doing it in person, it made sense to pick a lane, right? And specialize in that niche, right? Well, right now we're seeing the cost of specializing in a particular niche when the other thing gets wiped out, right? So, I mean, this is where you start thinking about, how do I diversify my revenue streams, right? Like, maybe we should be getting some money from online coaching, and maybe some from exercise, and maybe some from nutrition, and maybe some from in person. And now that in person's gone away, oh, I still have some revenue streams. It may not be the glory days of what I was making previously and the contribution I was making, but wow, I can stay afloat. And then I always then step out of this idea of like business owner, entrepreneur, and say, what about all the employees in our industry? You know, not just the business owners. Like, there's way more employees. You know, as Curtis said, he's one guy, and maybe he has some partners, but he's got 250 trainers who are trying to figure this out too. So if you're an employee, thinking about the same, right? So people who have jobs that allow them to work from home right now are still able to work. People who have jobs that don't allow them to work from home, where it's an in-person service provision, and that place is closed, they don't have that opportunity. So when we're talking about diversification, that's what we're talking about, right? We're talking about, and John has used the word sort of anti-fragile, that idea, you know? So again, if you weren't prepared for this, as no one was, you know, this isn't like, hey, you should have been thinking about these things, it's your own fault, you know, but we're here now. How do we think about creating that in the future? You know, again, because things might go back to normal in 6 weeks. Everything may open up. We may throw open the doors, let in the fresh air, let the delivery guy bring our pizza and exchange money face to face. Or it may be a year of this. I'm banking on a year of this. Like Amanda and my wife had a conversation this morning. We don't think our children will be back in school until the fall. We may be pleasantly surprised, but that means we have April, May, June, July, August, 6 months to figure out this new normal. So I could go on and on. I don't want to though. I'll leave it at that. But those are kind of my preliminary thoughts on this.
Thanks, JB. Okay, and as we continue to get a little bit more concrete and tactical, Shad, I want to bring you into this conversation because, one thing that Trainerize did pretty early on, like they figured this out, like, okay, there is some way to not replicate the in-person training experience, but be able to offer clients online training in a way that's accessible and easy to navigate. I've used Trainerize. It's actually quite a nifty thing. But you were some of the first that were really thinking about this. So like, what were some of the questions you had to ask yourself in terms of figuring out how do we get some of the good things about in-person training and get them into an app in a way that, I mean, again, you can't completely replicate the experience, but at least tries to retain as much of the good stuff and essential information as possible.
Yeah, no, great question. I think in the beginning for us, really when it was all about in person, was how do we maintain the piece that's fun? When you see a personal trainer in person, the biggest piece a trainer offers you is a sense of motivation while you're working out with him or her. And then technology, when you go home, when you work out by yourself, kind of comes on the way. And so from the very beginning, we asked ourselves the question, well, if we're going to have a trainer send stuff to a client when they're somewhere else, we got to make sure it's useful. We got to make sure it's fun. And so for us, I guess we were fortunate that in the fitness industry, there's been a wave with wearables and whatnot, Fitbit trackers and Apple Watches, which I know John loves. And so really we were able to connect to those because these devices make fitness fun. And what's interesting now is, you kind of mentioned earlier on where with this online training piece, what we're seeing today, like in this last 1 week, online training has shifted from a nice to have to a must have. To put it in perspective, at Trainerize, we get approximately maybe 100 to 150 new personal trainers or gyms signing up a day. In the last 10 days, that number has gone up to 300. And we ask every customer when they come in, why did you join Trainerize? To understand, what benefits are they trying to realize? 9 out of 10 answers we're seeing right now is my gym shut down because of COVID. My gym shut down, my clients are at home. I need to do something with them while they're at home. And so what we're seeing right now is a shift in terms of how online training is even being used with clients. To share some data points, one of our most used features inside our product has always been workouts, personal trainers giving clients a workout. And believe it or not, in the last 10 days, the workout usage has dropped. It's actually our least used feature. And the reason being, clients are at home, and personal trainers and gym owners are trying to figure out what kind of workouts do I now give my clients while they're at home when they don't have equipment or they're in a studio or 1-bedroom apartment. And to offset that, interestingly, we've actually seen our habits piece skyrocket and our nutrition piece skyrocket. And we're looking at some data points in the habits piece and in terms of what habits coaches are assigning clients. And I'll pull up my graphs here. The top 3 habits, and this aligns with what Spencer was talking about, the top 3 habits we're seeing coaches assign clients at home is drinking water, timing meals, and food choices. And I think there's some themes here we're seeing in this conversation, which is, well, when I go to a grocery store, all I can find right now are like maybe perishables, so everything with a barcode on it. I'm not buying as many greens maybe. And so I think coaches are shifting their kind of online training models to go, hey, here's how you can live a better life every single day while you're stuck at home, as opposed to here's a 30-minute workout you can do every day. And so some interesting trends we're seeing there in terms of what online training right now means as clients are stuck at home.
I love that. I think that's so interesting because the coach shifts from the person who, walks you through a workout in person to someone that like you can rely on for, I don't want to say life advice, but a certain slice of life advice, right? I mean, what an interesting shift to, okay, now I need this person to help me live under very specific circumstances. I think that's just a fascinating transition. And Molly, I want to get to you because, I mean, you also do online coaching and stuff, but you have a specific niche. And so I think, many coaches and trainers have a niche, a population that they speak to. And not that coaching women is a niche necessarily if we think about the numbers, but I mean, many coaches coach general population, and other coaches have like a particular group that they like to work with, whether that's older folks, younger folks, athletes, whatever. And you've really built your business around coaching and training women, especially in particular stages of life, like pregnancy and postpartum. So, I mean, how are you thinking about online coaching for, that has a particular target group in mind?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I actually wanted to, if it was okay, cover a couple of talking points about COVID-19 and pregnant and postpartum women. So one of our lead pre and postnatal experts and physiotherapists, Marika Hart, based in Perth, Australia. She's deep in the research. She did some research for us, pulled together. There's very little data, obviously. We know that about COVID-19 and how it's affecting everyone in general. Like, we're trying to gather more data every day. There's very little data right now on pregnancy and COVID. So if you're coaching pre and postnatal women, that's important to know. There were some initial concerns that pregnant women might be more susceptible to it because of the cardiopulmonary changes and their immune system changes. That at this time doesn't seem to be the case, but at least in the US, it's still recommended to consider them an at-risk population. And Spencer, feel free to pop in if I say anything that's, again, things are changing all the time. While Marika was doing this research, 3 of the URLs that she was researching changed in the couple of hours that she was doing this. So it's recommended to consider them at risk. There are a couple of small studies done in China with about 9 women showing that at this time the presentations are the same in women who are pregnant and who are not pregnant. But again, that might change over time. And also some small studies showing that COVID-19 does not transmit in utero or via breast milk at this point in time. In China, they, at least, and when this was done, they were actually removing newborns from their mothers for 14 days. In other areas, I'm not sure if that's still happening, but they were doing that to try to reduce the transmission from mothers with COVID-19 to their babies. And then in other parts of the world, they're trying to reduce that kind of taking the baby away from the mother and just use the face masks and the hand washing and stuff. So that's kind of the state of what's going on at this point in time with COVID-19 and pre and postnatal women. So if you're working with clients who are pregnant, 85% of women in the US will have a baby at some point in their life. They are probably going to be, we all know that when women are pregnant, generally they have a lot more questions. They've got a lot more concerns, anxieties about what's happening and what's happening in their body and how the things that they're doing might be affecting their baby. So those are things to keep in mind, that at this point in time, it does not seem to transmit in utero or via breast milk. So those things are really important. But yeah, I'm thinking specifically about women. 70% of the global healthcare workforce includes women. 85% of nurses, at least in the US, are women. So in general, more women are doing a lot of the frontline care of these patients who have COVID-19, so they have a higher risk because they are working with patients in person, and also a lot more of the informal caregiving and childcare and unpaid domestic labor and things fall on women. So a lot of women in general are being stretched even more in different directions right now. So I think it's really important to check in with your clients. John Goodman did a great video yesterday saying, just send your clients an email that says, hey, what do you need from me right now? And just asking them, because I think it's easy to assume what our clients need from us. They need at-home workouts and they need, their habits ingrained in them, whatever. Some clients, when there's all of these rules being imposed on us, you can't go outside, you can't go to restaurants, you can't, talk to other people. They are craving autonomy and variety and choice and some type of, just decision-making over their own body and their own life. And other people are feeling like there's a lot of chaos going on and like there's a lot of uncertainty, and they want to be told what to do. They want some structure. They want some order. They want a schedule. They want, so there's a lot of, it's easy to make assumptions based on how we're feeling in our individual situations about what our clients might want from us. But I think it's so critical to send that check-in email and say, what do you need from me right now? And then open up that conversation and allow them to tell you what they need, because it might be vastly different than what you're thinking.
Let me give you an example really quick. We had somebody who responded, sent me a message basically talking about what happened. He said somebody responded to that message saying, I'd really love to see a picture of your dog. And now they literally message back and forth pictures of their puppy throughout the day. That's what that person needed right now.
Mhm.
Isn't that just so
No,
powerful?
sorry.
Yeah, so it's so interesting. You don't know what your clients are going to want or need from you. Maybe they are going to want nutrition support. They are going to want the workouts. Maybe they want to take a break from workouts for a little while and they just want to focus on other things. So I think opening up that conversation, allowing them to tell you what they need from you, and then figuring out how you can deliver that in a virtual way is really important. I will say, we are putting together some incredible resources as a team. All of us have been contributing over the last several days. And Sharad was talking about how trainers are like, we don't know how to program these workouts for people at home with no equipment. So one of the resources that Girls Gone Strong has contributed is a number of at-home bodyweight workouts for people with all different goals. So we put together kind of like a choose your own adventure. Do you have 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20, 25, 30? Do you want to do upper body, lower body, full body? And we're giving all of these to health and fitness professionals for free to use with your clients. So maybe they just want you to send them a workout a day. Maybe they want you to give them a 6-week training program. We also developed some 6-week training programs for different goals for women who are in different stages of pregnancy and women in different stages of postpartum. So we've developed all of those so that you can have them at your fingertips, so you don't have to be writing the programs. You can actually be there supporting your client instead of spending time figuring out, okay, what are they going to do in 15 minutes for a full body workout, with no equipment. We've done that for you all. So because we want you to be there, being able to be emotionally present with your clients and giving them the support and guidance they need. So I think not assuming what your clients need, asking them what they need, and then figuring out how you can deliver it in this kind of virtual world that we're all working in is really important.
Yeah, I love that. Asking your clients what they need. Oh, sorry, JB, I interrupted
Yeah,
you.
I was going to jump in. I love that. And I think everyone watching, listening should really double down on that idea. I want to layer a secondary sort of fork in the road here too, which is, so this is predicated on you reaching out to your current clients, but there's also an opportunity to go out and get new clients right now. And they may look nothing like the people that you ask what they need to. You know what I mean? So you could ask your current clients and they could say this, and there could be a whole group of people out there that you're not thinking about at all, and that your current clients are biasing you toward helping, that may not provide help for that other group. And so, and I don't want to, I don't want it to seem like I'm like, oh, there's business opportunities here, because I think actually step one is actually something totally different. What Molly's talking about is listening. What I'm talking about is like a much deeper empathy than I see most people expressing right now on the socials and other places. So for example, kind of like Molly said, if you can step out of your own reality and think about the things that might be going on for big groups of other people out there, so for example, if you don't have children, you may not even be spending a minute thinking about what it might be like for someone like our family who you have 4 children at home and everyone's trying to figure out how to spend their day or feed the children. You go to the grocery store and you're like, wow, there's not a lot here. Oh, I can only buy 2 of a thing. Well, there's 6 people in my house. You know what I mean? But thinking of other things, like seniors whose mental, emotional health is predicated on maybe 1 visit a week from family members, and that now that's completely gone. Is there an opportunity to help them virtually? You think about children in cancer centers who maybe aren't even getting the normal care that they need because of this influx of sickness. Business owners who like sacrificed everything to make their business go. They're on the cusp of making it, and then this happens. People who are out of the country who can't get home. They're paying to stay in hotels right now because they can't get a flight home, even though the prime minister or the president's saying, come home now. Like, I try it and I can't. And they're paying nightly rates at hotels while their net worth, because of the stock market, is totally crashing, right? So this is happening. Molly talked about pregnant women and the fears they must be having right now. And I think about people with new infants at home. So you're going to go to the grocery store to get your groceries, and you're worried about not only bringing home formula, but COVID-19 for your new baby. So these are just a bunch of examples of the kinds of things that could be happening outside of your reality that I think if we brought a deeper sense of empathy, so like Molly said, let's ask the people who we are in direct contact with questions. What do you need right now? As John also posted. I also think we don't need to just ask the people who we have immediate contact with. We can just imagine all the scenarios. Some are horrifying, some are better than others, where people might need support, and we can actually start offering that support, whether it's paid or free. I'm not here to tell you how to govern that, but I think if let's face it, most people working in the health and fitness industry are young, possibly unmarried, possibly without children. So you're just, if you're steeped in your own reality, you don't even know the vast number of people that are out there that need a different kind of help that you could probably provide. And you just need to step up with this sort of empathic kind of approach. So I just really wanted to tag that on, because I've been thinking a lot about this lately, about all the scenarios that my first line of conjuring in my mind about how I can help people in my own life is based on my own reality, right? And then I go, oh, wait, how can I crack that thinking wide open and say, wait, who else is out there, and what kind of scenarios are happening, and how can I get access to those? Because my resources may be better directed to helping that than the thing I think of first.
And JB, just to pursue that, just very briefly, I think people listening might worry, oh, but isn't that just ambulance chasing, right? If I'm thinking about how to capitalize on an opportunity, isn't that just being crass? Do I have to be salesy? I feel icky about this. Should I give stuff away for free? I mean, how do you help people navigate those complicated feelings?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why I say begin with empathy. Come up with a list of the kinds of people who might need help and support, right? So that's part one. You can stop there. And if you stop there, you'd be a better person. You know what I mean? If you just approach the world in this kind of curious, empathic way. So if that's where you want to stop. The next level is, okay, cool. If I'm doing better than most, how can I help? So that might be the next question, right? And that help might be donating time. It might be donating money. It might be providing resources, whatever the case may be. There may be a third tier to that, which is, hey, I also work as a personal trainer, nutrition coach, lifestyle coach, and I used to do that in person, and who knows for how long I won't be able to do that any longer. I wonder if any of those groups that I've reached out to help have people who are doing okay, who might want this service, and how could I present that to them in a non-sleazy, non-pitchy, hey, this is what I can do for free, and this is what I can do if you want more time, attention, care, support. So again, everyone gets to draw their line there, and I'm not here to tell anyone how to do that. But I think if we're not thinking about the realities of other people, then it's worse for our own lives for sure. And then it's worse for possible opportunities that could come up from that to either help or to either have an income. Because it's okay to be like, oh, it's sleazy to sell things when people are hurting. That notion runs out really fast if you can't afford the groceries for your own family. So helping others, help yourself, feels like we can make that work in a credible, classy, helpful way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you said time, attention, care, and support. I think those are 4 really good, thematic words. Let me shift gears here a little bit and go back to John Goodman, because I think one of the questions people have is okay, I feel like coaching online, maybe that's a path for me, but it feels really overwhelming. I feel like I don't even know where to start. There's so many options. What tools do I use? What tactics? I hardly even know how to use Facebook, whatever, right? I guess rather than getting into specific tools that you could use, I mean, you could mention those too, but I'm interested in, how do you start thinking remotely, if I could call it that, right? Thinking like an online practitioner in a way that is sort of progressive. If I'm starting today and I know nothing about online training and coaching, how would you gradually bring me into that thinking remotely space?
Wow. I mean, the biggest mistake that I think people fall into, which I'll start with, is focusing on the delivery method before first actually defining or thinking about what they want to achieve and accomplish. There's a lot of amazing software companies out there. For everything, we're using Zoom right now. You can use Zoom, you can use Skype for video stuff. All of them are fine. Trainerize is an incredible software. There's a lot of great software companies, but like, you really actually shouldn't start with trying to identify the delivery method because you haven't yet figured out what you actually want to deliver. And to be honest, you will never know until you've actually worked with people remotely. You won't be able to, you could never envision it because it's something you've never done. So how do you possibly begin to decide how you're going to deliver a service and what tools you're going to use if you've never actually tried to deliver that service? So with that, I mean, I love the idea of starting before you're ready. There's a famous didactic story, potentially apocryphal, of Thomas Edison, who would actually call in press releases about inventions that he hadn't yet invented. And the idea of that is he would put pressure on himself to deliver something because it would be such a big embarrassment publicly if he didn't. That forced obligation forced his brain into overdrive to be able to actually achieve that thing. If you have people waiting for a service, you're going to get it done. So perhaps there's actually a great opportunity here to, stage one, like step one is actually to take on clients before you're ready. Because once you do that, first of all, you'll figure out that it's not as scary. People are much more willing to work with you than you might think. You'll also figure out that there are a multitude of delivery systems and every client's different. And everything you do with every client might be different. And the best thing that you can do is actually speak to your client and say, what do you need from me? Because some clients might actually just want you to check in with them and hold them accountable. Like we have trainers, we have online trainers who are the only thing that they do is they literally get a picture of every single thing that people eat and they send a thumbs up in return. That's what that person needs. There's this example of like the puppy photo. Other people need at-home workouts. To be honest, right now, a lot of people need compassion. A lot of people need somebody to speak to, somebody to commiserate with. Like the coach's job is to offer a client what they need when they need it. That's actually one of the most exciting things about online training is it allows you to flip the script. Whereas in a conventional fitness environment, business dictates fitness. In online, fitness dictates business. You can literally create exactly what the client needs and act as concierge at any point in time. And that's going to completely change. And you don't know what that is. The other side of the coin is, if I can get super real for a minute, I feel like trainers and business owners like me, and perhaps listening, you might feel the same way. What I need right now more than anything is to be needed. And so a lot of what we need personally, if we're really honest with ourselves, is to be needed. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of scary stuff. I mean, financially, you might really be struggling. And like the idea of that in the future, like if things keep going on, like JB says, for 6-8 months a year, which I agree with him, I think that it probably will. But really right now, if we're all really honest with ourselves, it's that there's this kind of hopelessness simmering. There's this kind of lack of context. And I feel like we all just kind of need to be needed. And so if I can get like super actionable really quick as I round this all out, I think the best thing that anybody can do right now is send that 9-word email to any past customers, which has been mentioned a few times, which the subject is, hey, the email is, what do you need from me right now? Nothing else. Just send that. And you would be amazed at the responses you're going to get. And really all that is just speaking to people who you care about. And being there for them, maybe sending them puppy photos, whatever. And then the other thing is create a 7-day challenge. It's the easiest thing ever. Create a 7-day challenge. A big mistake is people are trying to do too much. They're like, oh, I want to give somebody 30 days of in-home workouts. And we're all busy. We're all overloaded. I don't know about you. Every single day for the last 2 weeks has felt like a month for me. You can't give somebody 21 days of stuff to do right now. 7 might even be a stretch. Does anybody know what the world is going to look like in 7 days? Like, I don't even know what the world looks like now, and it's been an hour since we've been on this call. So you can't give somebody 21 days. So 7 days, like move however the heck you want challenge is what I would call it. Like tongue in cheek, do something. And then what I want to do is I want to celebrate. As the coach, I want to celebrate that movement. Go for a walk. I did a 10-minute workout this morning. while my wife and my son were like putting up hangers and stuff like that, because she does all the handiwork in the house because I'm useless. And like move, do whatever you did, make a community, invite people into your community, anybody you speak to, and just say, all we're doing here is just celebrating doing something purposeful, active for yourself. Did you eat a good meal? Post a GIF, take a picture of it, post it in the group. Did you move? Did you go for a walk? Did you have a fun workout with your child that you're not at home with and you're creating a good example? Whatever that is, let's all be in a community together and let's all celebrate each other, because you as the leader of this community, as the online coach, your job isn't necessarily to tell people what to do. Your job is to be the center of that community and to bring people together, supporting those movements, giving people what they really need, which is just this celebration of doing anything, not feeling like you have to do a lot, starting to create these new habits that I think is going to be important for all of us.
I love that, positioning yourself at the center of the community. And so I want to kind of close this out. We're coming to the end of our time together. I want to close this out with you, Curtis, because I think, you know, I've mentioned this before, but as an entrepreneur, I mean, every day is an act of resilience and what now, and problem solving, and on the ground, you know, dynamic response to all kinds of things you can't even imagine. And you know, your background is certainly someone who's persistently, you know, faced challenges head on and shown a lot of resilience. And so, you know, can you talk from your background as both an entrepreneur and an athlete and just someone who faces life in a very resilient way, you know, the value of resilience broadly, and then the value of resilience, you know, as a business person?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a large question. I think the big thing is that we have to respect each individual person, whatever role you play in this, whether you're in our example that we're talking about today, whether you're a client, whether you're the employee, whether you're the manager, the business owner, a trainer, an online coach, not an online coach, friends, family, you name it, we're going to react to this crisis differently. Like, that's just a reality. You know, how we respond to scenarios and situations, there's an element that it's all relative to ourselves. So what we've gone through, what we've been through, who we are as individuals. Are we people that attack things? Are we people that retract from things? You know, and that is, I think we have to be cognitive of that first and foremost, because we naturally tend to believe that whether it's our spouse or significant other responds the way that we respond, or we want them to respond. And so I think there's a book called The 5 Love Languages. It's very similar principle that, you know, we have to understand and respect that people are going to respond differently to this. When we talk about resilience, you know, in itself is, you know, this is going to be a challenging time. It's a challenging time, not just in this industry, but the economy. And it's going to have challenges that are it's varied from person to person. And so, you know, my suggestion, I mean, you know, my background, I played in, you know, on the national, I was on the national team for the Canadian national water polo team. I've ran across the Sahara Desert. I did a 6-day bike ride from Halifax to Vancouver. You know, I've always put challenges in front of me, and some of those things are self-imposed. But my biggest thing the analogy I used to someone the other day is, if anybody's ever been on a road bike before, you know, they usually generally say, you know, you got to attack a hill. And, you know, naturally when we're under pressure and stress, sometimes we like to retract. And I think at the end of the day, if I could give any encouragement or motivation, it's, you know, look at that hill and attack it like you mean it. There will be breaks. There will be people that will pick you up when you're down. You know, this group has brought, you know, is come together to provide that. Even this conversation today is to open up dialogue that we got you, that you're not alone, that we're in this together, that we're going to take a fragmented industry and bring people together to provide resources, support, help, advice, suggestions to get through this. You know, as a business owner and entrepreneur, it's not, you know, it's not easy. And I'm not saying that it's, you know, easier for anybody else, like I just said. But, you know, when we made the decision to close down on Sunday morning, which was, you know, an extremely, you know, not rushed decision. Someone said, oh, that's a knee-jerk reaction. I said, have you seen what's happening in the world? said, we're assessing and evaluating and doing our best to navigate through uncharted territory. That's just our reality. We're putting thought and process into it. And sometimes we have to react to an action that's happening faster than we anticipated. But, you know, the responsibility as an entrepreneur or a business owner is we're looking out of the realities of our employees, our teammates, their families, our clients, their realities. And I think what's talked about a lot right now is we have to emotionally be there for people. I mean, I wrote down some notes when everybody was talking is right now it's a point of being there emotionally, not physically. We're all under a fight or flight response right now. The chances are if you're a trainer that works in a gym, in a personal training studio, you know, at home, you know, online as an example, the clients that usually we serve, you know, are going through their own challenges, you know, like the challenges and shifts in behaviors around their work. If they're business owners, what are they doing? How are they supporting their employees? How are they risk mitigating everything, you know, and in crisis management mode? The likelihood of them actually jumping onto a physical program, even though they probably need it, you know, really at the end of the day, we got to flatten the curve from a nervous system response too. We got to respect that. We got to emotionally be there for them. And then what we can do is we can actually, you know, put plans in place. And I think, you know, being resilient to get through the initial response and reaction is important. I think rely on people, ask for help. So many of us, you know, a lot of us are goal-oriented that are listening on right now. Like, we're in this business because we are focused at our health and we like to challenge status quo. Don't think you have to do it all. You can ask for help and there's no shame in that. And chances are it's going to, you know, allow you to provide you with the breaks or the resources or support to continue on. And that's being resilient. Resilient isn't that you have to do it all yourself. Resiliency is actually, how do you navigate this as best as possible, be as strong as possible, and be as reliable as possible to actually get through it. And I think at the end of the day, you know, I'm kind of going off here, but there's resources, there's people. I think speed does make a difference, not perfection. You know, I think, you know, like what John Goodman said, like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It does not, you know, play it in the mindset of the long game. Provide what people want or need, including yourself now, and you're going to progress. You're going to progress and you're going to, you know, going to evolve. You're going to evolve what you need and what they need. And, you know, and that's the big thing. A lot of people get paralyzed in a fearful situation. You know, try not to allow that to happen if possible. Don't get paralyzed, be methodical, and really put out a plan. And, you know, it's all the sharpening the axe too. Take a pause for yourself too. Take a pause, take a step back. What do I need to put in place for my health, my safety, you know, my well-being, and then put an action plan in place, which includes resources, support groups, networks, you name it, to then do it. I mean, I could discuss, you know, everything about from an employee and you name it, but I think I want to share the open opportunity and dialogue. I mean, that's what I would share with the comments I made about resilience. So
I'd love to jump in on that for a sec. You know, actually a member of the PN community private messaged me this morning, was like, JB, you have to share your guy who fell off the roof and broke 100 bones story, because it's one of my favorites.
The legend.
And so, I mean, the context is, you know, we wrote the article, the pause button mentality, that's been very popular. And it kind of reminds me of that as you know, to Curtis's point, take a second and evaluate, but then it's time to get moving. And I see a lot of people pressing pause right now. Well, I'll just take some time off the gym then because the gym's closed, and when it opens, I'll get back. Well, that could be quite a long time. So instead of pausing on that, you know, I put up on socials our homeschooling plan for the children, and people are like, nah, we're just going to binge watch Disney films. And I'm like, okay, so we're going to press pause on education. I see it in the markets, right? Literally, traders are not answering their phones. They're pressing pause on economic activity. And I even feel it, you know, like Amanda's like, should we stay in Arizona then? Should we try and rent this house for another month? And I'm like, oh, let's just wait a couple more days to decide. So I'm not just saying everyone, like, those other people are pressing pause. I feel it in myself. And then it reminds me of that, the pause button mentality piece at PN, the, always something versus all or nothing. And then that kind of led to the story. So years ago, there was a client in our precision nutrition coaching program, and he was a contractor, and he was working up on a roof, and he fell off a multi-story roof, and he broke about 100 bones in his body or whatever. And at that point, you're like, okay, cool. You hear this story from a family member of his, and we're like, oh, if there's a good a time as any to give someone a refund and, whatever, this would be it. And the guy emails back with the one finger that's not broken or whatever, and says, hey, if now isn't the time for help, support, coaching, when is? Right. And so I always love that story. And I feel like this is the same type of scenario. Like if you have a life coach or a career coach or a health coach, if now isn't the time to lean on them, when is? Right. And I think the same message goes for your clients if you're a coach in the industry. Again, paid, unpaid, I'm not going to tell you how to conceive of that. I'm just saying, as Curtis said, help. If now isn't the time for you to seek help and you to provide help, when else would there be a good time for this? So instead of pressing pause, how can we lean in, right? How can we unpause the whole scenario and say, here, let me go give some and let me go get some.
And I think, just to add to that, I think, we have to be reminded that we live in a world, I always say that we're more stress than we've ever been and less time than we've ever had. Well, now we have, some people are having a lot of time. Like they're sitting at home and they don't know what to do with it. And there is a level of stress. So leaning into it, like we just said, John, is super important. Our clients are probably navigating on how they're going to structure their days and their behaviors, and they got kids at home, providing a framework or even like a backbone for their overall structure and health is super important. That's not ambulance chasing. That's going, hey, we got you. We got you. And we're here for you. When you're ready, we got you, and we'll provide you with what you need, whether that's nutritional coaching, whether it's, your fitness, whether it's tips, whether it's support. Leaning in right now is not, in my opinion, it's not chasing the ambulance. It's actually just going, hey, I'm lending a hand. I'm sitting here on the sidelines, and never has there been a time when health is more important, especially when we have, a routine that has been disrupted. So be that backbone for people. And that's what we can be.
Mm-hmm. A better analogy is maybe we're not chasing the ambulance. We're sitting in the ambulance holding the hand of the person who is suffering. Molly, I saw you had your hand up there.
Yeah, I just wanted to, we've talked about a lot of things on this call. We've given you some ideas of things to do. We've put together this kind of resource or packet that has all kinds of different resources and different things that you can check out. And I know for me during this time, I've, trying to get these resources pulled together and trying to manage a team and trying to help our coaches and clients and stuff, it's been a bit overwhelming. And there's an author I follow named Glennon Doyle. I don't know if this is original to her, but when I'm feeling really overwhelmed and stressed, I come back to what she says, which is, all you have to do right now is the next right thing. And for a lot of people, the next right thing might be going and getting a glass of water. And then the next right thing might be calling and checking on someone that you care about. Or the next right thing might be sending that email that John Goodman was talking about. So when you feel like there are so many things to do, I'm so overwhelmed, I'm so stressed, there's all of these different options for me, just think about what in this moment is the one next right thing you can do. And do that thing and get it done. And then think, okay, what's the one next right thing that I can do? But keep, again, in an effort to not kind of pause everything in your life, just one next right thing, and then one more next right thing, and then one more next right thing. And I think passing that advice on to our clients as well is you don't have to do it all. You just have to do the one next right thing, I think is really helpful, at least for me, in terms of constantly making forward momentum.
Yeah, and I think that's a really nice note to close on. But before we let you all go, Molly has mentioned a resource package that we have prepared for you. This is a work in progress, but already I think it's pretty darn good. There is a ton of free and donated material in there. There's advice, something we've curated at Precision Nutrition, something Trainerize has offered, something Changemaker Academy has offered, something that John Goodman at OTA has offered. You know, there's just tons and tons of stuff in there, done for you workouts, resources, worksheets. So it'll be available on the website. Definitely go and check it out. The other thing to mention is that if you are watching this and you are, you know, part of a fitness organization yourself, you can join us. This is not an elite club in some ways, right? So, you know, send us an email to partners@healthandfitnesscoalition.com. You know, come and find us and work with us. It's, you know, this is about collaboration, not competition. And I think, you know, in an industry that sometimes likes to be competitive, this is a time to do the opposite and to work together and to collaborate. So again, reminding you all about the resource package. This is an ongoing conversation. So we hope to, I mean, in a way, we hope to have this discussion resolved soon, but we expect that probably it won't be resolved soon. So we hope to have this discussion in an ongoing way. I'd like to conclude with a quick go around from all the participants here, just giving us, you know, if you could have people walk away. I mean, I ask people to think, what's the one thing you're going to walk away with? But if you could tell people what you think their one thing to take away from this discussion would be, what would that be? So let me go in a different order than I've been going before. Maybe Sharad, I'll start with you. What's like the one thing you'd like people to take away from this?
I'd say, you know, we're going to send all these resources on what to do and what not. I guess I would say, let me share what I'm doing, because I myself am working from home and I'm going a little stir crazy at times. And so the one thing I'm doing right now is putting myself on a routine. You know, I wake up at the same time, still make my cup of coffee. I look at my to-do for the day. I go to my customer channels. So I think for everyone in this call right now, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, when you're in a different setting yourself, what's really important is that you have that mindset. We have clarity in what you need to do. So get in a routine every single day, because your world has changed as well.
Nice. Yeah, I love how you personalize that. Yeah. So for those of us who are not used to working at home, I'm totally in this groove. This changes my routine very little as an introvert, remote worker. Precision Nutrition's been we've been working at home for pretty much as long as there's been remote work. So this is nothing new to us, but certainly for a lot of people it is new. So I'm glad that you shared, you know, how you're figuring that out. Dr. Spencer, what would you like people to take away from this?
Yeah, kind of like I said before with acceptance, accept that we're going to be going through this. It's a waste of energy to, I mean, we're all going to do it anyway, but it's a waste of energy to get upset at the situation, focus on the next best action, as Molly was saying, focus on what you can control, accept what you cannot control. And wash your hands, I guess I should say.
Good advice. John Goodman, what would you like people to walk away with?
Yeah. As somebody who's been working from home for a long time, put on pants, make your bed, floss your teeth, figure out a way to celebrate the small wins, and identify small wins in your life. And this is a Phil Caravaggio and John Berardi special. Catch people in the act of doing something good, and don't ever resist the urge or a generous impulse. Be that person that celebrates other people right now. Whenever you can, help other people celebrate their small wins. Catch them when they're doing something good, when they're putting themselves out there, and just send them a quick message. Just like, yo, bro, I saw what you did there. That's pretty cool. That's all there needs to be.
I love that. I dispute the need for pants with work at home. Pants
are
optional.
Right now? That's nobody
We'll
knows.
never know.
Molly's probably in bed. I mean,
I don't have the answer to that.
Molly, what do you want people to walk away with?
Yeah, so obviously you all can tell I like learning from smart people. I like quotes. There's this quote from Mr. Rogers. He used to say, when scary things were happening in the world, my mother would say, look for the helpers. There are always people helping. And I think as health and fitness professionals, we get into this industry because we like helping people. And this is an incredible opportunity to take, like I said at the beginning of the call, the collective heartbreak and suffering, like into ourselves and out into the world in terms of what we have the opportunity to do with our clients is support them, give them our time, our guidance, our support, our care, help them care for their own physical health, mental health. And so I think this is an incredible opportunity for all of us to be the helpers, be the people who are helping in the difficult situation. And that's a pretty incredible thing.
Thank you. Thanks, Molly. Curtis, what's the one takeaway for people from you?
Perfect segue. From Molly, I would say that in a time of chaos, disruption, uncertainty, and possibly anxiety, ask for help yourself, right? Like, we're here to help everybody else, but if you're feeling overwhelmed, anxious about things, don't know what the next move is, you probably have a team around you of some sort. It might be employees, teammates, it might be your family, friends. Ask for help, and like I like to say, delegate and elevate. Now's the time to do that. When you feel overwhelmed, delegate and elevate, because people will rise to the occasion, and you'll be shocked on what they can do for you or help you with.
It's amazing. Delegate and elevate. We're all stealing that phrase. That's good. JB, what's your takeaway?
I think there needs to be a few moments of grieving. Like I'll never be accused of being an optimist, but I'll never be accused of being a pessimist either. And I think we need to spend a few minutes grieving for, what coronavirus has done to us, right? So get out a piece of paper and write down all the ways it's inconvenienced or hurt or bothered you, and then burn that piece of paper and watch it go up in smoke, and then write down what it's doing for you. Like, in other words, what advantages is it giving you? For me, the one I wrote down was time. It's giving me a tremendous abundance of the currency of time, right? And this is the thing that most of us 3 weeks ago would have said we didn't have enough of. And now, not all, but a lot of us have an abundance of this currency in our lives. For me, I have all day, every day, wake up to bedtime with my 4 beautiful children and my wife, Amanda. So, it's given me that, you know what I mean? And now that might not be the same for you all. Again, I mentioned Shakespeare doing some of his great works during a similar time as this. Newton, apparently later on in the 1600s, similar, gravity, math, optics, innovations were made while he was sent away from school. So if time is your currency, if that's what this situation is giving you, how will you use that time? If time isn't the currency it's giving you, what is it giving you? I think these are things we can do for our own mental health, but also to move forward, as we've all talked about. You might create something great during this time. It might be a great relationship. It might be a great piece of work. Whatever it is, there's probably a gift that you're being given right now. Whether you know it or not yet remains to be seen.
Yeah, what you're saying reminds me of the phrase you often hear after major events, which is first mourn and then work for change, right? So I'm glad that you called out that those two things have to occur. We have to give a name and a voice to our own suffering and distress. Like we tell our clients, notice and name what you're thinking and feeling, attend, attune, allow, and then, move into that growth mindset, move into that resilience, but don't rush to it necessarily. So that's wonderful. And for me, it's definitely given me a lot of gratitude. I've started writing down in my daily to-do list, still alive, which might sound kind of flippant and crass, but for me, it's actually like, you know what? All of us are at significant risk. The fact that I'm still here today kind of feels more momentous than it did last week, and more valuable and more meaningful. And it feels like it propels me even more to help, to serve, to care, to support others. So I think that's kind of the general theme of this conversation is, for me particularly, is gratitude. And I'm so grateful for all of you just taking the time and the energy to be here. I know, like we said, we're all in the same boat. You're all busy, or maybe not, we have different relationships to that, but your time is valuable, your wisdom is valuable, and thank you so much. For folks just leaving, again, we have a resource package hopefully it will grow. This will be an online or an ongoing conversation. And we hope to add more people to this discussion. So maybe next time you see us, there will be more of us. Thanks so much to all of you for joining us. And thanks to you guys on the panel for being with us here today.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.